They say that life changes as you get older, that eventually the excitement fades and only small sparks are left. You get used to being alone and think that the best parts of your life are over. I believe that too. My name is Margaret Harris, and I am 65 years old. For the last 5 years, I've been a widow, living in a big old house that feels as empty as my heart. There is a peace in the quiet, but also a deep loneliness that wraps around you like a heavy blanket, keeping you still and isolated. Everything changed when Ethan came into my life. He was 25, young, full of energy, and reminded me of the person I used to be. I never planned to fall for him. In fact, I didn't think I could still feel what I ended up feeling. This isn't a story about young love. It's about something unexpected, feeling desire when you think you're too old for it. I can't explain why it happened, or if it should have, but Ethan made me feel alive in a way I never thought I would again. My house, at the edge of a small coastal town, had been falling apart for years. It was full of memories of my husband Henry, who passed away 5 years ago, and the life we used to have. The walls seemed to echo with the past, and I held on to those memories because they were all I had left. Since Henry died, my life was just a routine. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat by the window, watching the ocean. I kept waiting for something to change, but nothing ever did. The waves rolled in and out, repeating the same endless pattern, just like my days. I tried to keep busy. I gardened, volunteered at the library, and even started knitting, but nothing filled the emptiness. My career as a journalist had ended long before Henry died, and I felt like I was useless and forgotten. The woman who used to travel the world, meeting important people and exploring new places, was now someone who barely left her house. Even my body reminded me of how much I had aged, with my aching joints and tired bones. Every step I took seemed to remind me of what I had lost. I still saw people sometimes. Linda, my neighbor and closest friend, would come over for tea on Sundays, but even those visits felt empty. She had her own life and family, and I felt like an outsider looking in. It was like I had become a ghost in my own life, just drifting through the days without any real purpose. The house, which used to be full of life, was also showing its age. The roof leaked, the wood was rotting, and everything seemed to be falling apart. It was just like how I felt inside, old and crumbling, but too tired to do anything about it. Then one day, the problems in the old house became too big to ignore. The house needed repairs, and I guess I did too, though I didn't realize it then. I remember the day Ethan first came to the house like it was yesterday. It was a warm spring day, and I had called a construction company to look at the damage. When the truck pulled up, I expected an older contractor, but instead, out stepped Ethan, young, strong, and full of energy. He wore a faded t-shirt and jeans, and his smile was bright and easy, like he hadn't yet faced the tough parts of life. I felt awkward around him, not because of anything he did, but because I wasn't used to being around someone so young. He introduced himself confidently, which surprised and intrigued me. "Mrs. Harris, I'm Ethan. I'll be working on the house for the next few weeks." I shook his hand, feeling the rough calluses on his palm. He seemed solid and steady, which made me realize how fragile I felt. At that moment, I wasn't thinking about anything beyond him fixing the house, but something in me shifted. It was as if his presence alone began to wake something up inside me. As the days passed, Ethan worked hard, and I found myself hanging around where he was working. At first, I told myself it was just curiosity. I had nothing better to do. But soon, I realized I was drawn to his energy. His laughter filled the quiet house, and sometimes he played guitar during breaks, the music drifting through the halls like something I had forgotten. We talked during his breaks. He asked me about my life, about my time as a journalist, and I found myself opening up to him in a way I hadn't with anyone in years. He seemed genuinely interested in my stories, and it made me feel seen for the first time in a long time. Ethan told me about his own life, how he was working in construction to save money for music school, and how he wanted to become a professional guitarist. There was a passion in him, a love for life that I used to have but had lost. As I listened to him talk about his dreams, I felt something inside me wake up. I should have known then that I was playing with fire, but I told myself it was harmless. After all, I was a widow, old enough to be his mother. What could possibly happen? Weeks went by, and I found myself looking forward to Ethan being at the house more than I wanted to admit. I noticed small things, how his muscles moved when he lifted heavy beams, how his eyes sparkled when he smiled, and how he seemed to stay close to me a little longer than necessary when we talked. The first time I felt something more was one hot afternoon when I brought him a glass of water. He drank it all in one go, and as he handed the glass back to me, his fingers brushed mine. It was such a small touch, but it sent a shock through me that I wasn't expecting. It made me realize how long it had been since anyone had touched me like that, even so innocently. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about him. My mind wandered to places it hadn't gone in years. I imagined being touched again, being held, but then guilt filled me. How could I think about someone so much younger like that? It was silly and embarrassing, but the thoughts wouldn't go away. Every time I saw him, the feelings grew stronger. I started spending more time in front of the mirror before he arrived, fixing my clothes and making sure my hair looked neat. It was foolish, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted to feel desirable again, even if it was just a fantasy. One afternoon, as we were walking around the estate, I tripped on an uneven stone and fell into Ethan. He caught me before I could hit the ground, holding me steady. We stood there for a moment, too close, his hands gripping my arms. My breath caught in my throat and I could feel his warmth. "I've got you," he said softly. I looked up at him, and for a brief moment, something passed between us. It was quick, but it was enough. I pulled away, thanking him, but I knew something had changed. There was no going back. I could see it in his eyes too, an awareness that wasn't there before. The first kiss happened one evening after Ethan stayed late to help me move furniture in the attic. We were tired, the light was dim, and the air was full of dust. After we finished, we sat on an old bench to catch our breath. We talked for a while, as we always did, but then the silence stretched out. I could feel him watching me, and when I looked up, our eyes met. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly his lips were on mine, gentle and hesitant but full of feeling. I should have stopped it, but I didn't. I kissed him back, letting myself get lost in the moment. When we pulled away, I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Margaret, I put a hand on his chest. "Just don't. Don't." We never talked about it after that, but the kiss lingered between us, a secret we both held. I felt both thrilled and ashamed. The guilt was there, but the desire was stronger. I felt alive again in a way I hadn't in years. Over the next few weeks, our moments together grew more frequent. We never talked about what was happening, but the attraction was obvious. When we were alone, he would kiss me, his touch getting bolder each time. We found quiet corners of the house to steal moments together, his hands gentle on me, making me forget everything else. But it wasn't just the physical connection. Ethan made me feel wanted, like I was more than just a lonely widow. He made me feel like a woman again. I looked forward to every touch, every kiss. The moments we shared were intoxicating, pulling me deeper into something I wasn't ready to fully acknowledge. But with every moment we stole, the guilt grew. I thought of Henry often, of the life we had shared, and wondered what he would think. But I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. My time with Ethan was thrilling, but it came with a price. The guilt and fear of being caught hung over me. I knew what I was doing was dangerous, for me and for Ethan. I knew people would judge, that they wouldn't understand. And yet, I kept going back for more, unable to resist the way he made me feel. Linda, my neighbor, started noticing changes in me. One afternoon during tea, she commented on how lively I seemed lately, how there was a new energy about me. She was curious, and I could see questions forming in her mind. I brushed it off, saying I was just focused on the house renovations, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She didn't know, but she suspected something, and that made me nervous. I started being more careful around Ethan, making sure no one could see us together. I didn't want to lose the friendship I had with Linda, and I didn't want her to judge me for what I was doing. But the guilt kept growing. Ethan seemed to be falling deeper into our relationship. He stayed after work longer, wanting to be close, to talk, to touch. He was young and full of feelings, and I could tell he was starting to expect more from me than I could give. He wanted more of my time, more of my attention, and I began to feel the pressure of his expectations. It wasn't just a fling for him. It was something real, something he wanted to hold on to, and that scared me. One evening, after an intense moment between us, he asked if I could ever see a future with him. His question caught me off guard. A future? It seemed impossible. I was 65 and he was 25. How could we have a future? But I could see in his eyes that he meant it. He wanted more from me, something I wasn't sure I could give. He wanted stability, a commitment, and I didn't know how to tell him that it wasn't possible. I had lived my life, and he was just beginning his. After Ethan's question, things got tense between us. I could feel his expectations, and it scared me. I had never meant for this to be anything more than a short moment of feeling alive. But Ethan wanted more, and I couldn't give it to him. I tried to pull away. I avoided him, making excuses for why I couldn't spend time with him, but it was harder than I thought. Every time I saw him, the desire came back, and I couldn't stay away. It was a constant struggle, wanting him but knowing it wouldn't work, needing him but knowing it wouldn't last. I was living two lives, one as the person I used to be, and one as the person I had become with Ethan. One day, Linda came over unexpectedly while Ethan was at the house. I scrambled to make sure she didn't see him, and the fear of being caught made my heart race. It was a close call, too close, and it made me realize how dangerous everything had become. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly afraid of someone finding out. It wasn't fair to Ethan, and it wasn't fair to me. I was putting both of us in a situation that could end badly. The breaking point came after weeks of tension. Ethan was frustrated with the distance I was putting between us, and one evening he confronted me. He wanted to know what we were doing, what I wanted. He said he was falling in love with me, and he needed to know if I felt the same. His words felt like a punch in the stomach. Love? How could I love him? I cared about him, yes, but love? That was impossible. I couldn't give him what he wanted, and it broke my heart. I wanted to be able to give him everything, but I knew I couldn't. I tried to explain, to make him understand that I was too old and too broken for him, but he wouldn't listen. He said he didn't care about my age or anything else. He just wanted me. But I knew it couldn't last. The guilt, the shame, the fear, it was all too much. So I told him it had to end. There was no future for us, and the sooner we accepted that, the better. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I knew it was the right choice. Ethan was devastated. He begged me to reconsider, but I stood firm. It was over. It had to be. After he left, I felt a deep sense of loss. The house felt emptier than ever, and the silence was overwhelming. I had let go of the one thing that made me feel alive again, and now I was left with only memories. The joy and excitement that Ethan had brought into my life were gone, and I had to learn to live without them again. Over the next few months, I thought a lot about my life, my choices, and my time with Ethan. I thought about Henry, about the life we had built together, and the love we shared. It was a different kind of love than what I had felt with Ethan, deeper and more steady, but it was love all the same. I realized that I had been lucky to experience love twice in my life, even if it was different each time. It was something many people never got to experience, and for that, I was grateful. One day, I received a letter from Ethan. He thanked me for everything, for helping him find his passion for life again, and for showing him a kind of love he hadn't known before. He said he was moving away to follow his dream of becoming a musician, and hoped I could find peace. His words touched me, and I knew it was time to let go of the past. I knew he would go on to do amazing things, and I wanted him to be happy, even if it wasn't with me. I sold the big house, moved to a smaller, easier place, and started teaching piano again. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life, not as the woman who had an affair, but as someone who had learned to live again. I found joy in small things, in the music I played, in the students I taught, and in the quiet moments that no longer felt so empty. I wasn't the same person I had been before Ethan came into my life, but I was stronger, more alive, and more at peace. And for that, I would always be thankful.